viewers, at this point we welcome on set with us Shaykh Ḥasan, Imam Jumantown Masjid, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Welcome to Tobago.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. As we get started this morning, you know, we going on the premise you are in Tobago for a particular purpose. Having been here, the initiative would have taken place from last week. Let's start by telling us a little bit about that experience.
I've been to Tobago a few times. I think this is my 7th visit. Very hospitable. People are very welcoming. Community is small, but sometimes when you have small communities, you have tighter bonds and connections. So it was an Islamic seminar where the community learned to get closer to God. And that means to become better human beings. Because when a person knows that they're going to be accountable for their actions, it has an effect upon the way that they live. So it was very, very productive and very fruitful.
All right. Tell us a little bit about, you know, today we're looking at the Islamic solution for the ills of society. Would you say that the pillars of the Islamic faith become very critical in guiding the individuals within the faith?
No doubt. I mean, in Islamic law, there are 5 objectives. The primary objective is preservation of religion. I think that if a person knows that they're going to be accountable before God, as I said, it's going to affect the way that they interact with others. In Islam, the fundamental of all fundamentals is to worship God alone and to not ascribe any partners to Him. And part of that is to believe in the last day as well, that we will stand before God and be brought to account for what we have done in this life. So if somebody has committed a crime, even if they escaped in this life, they're going to be accountable in the hereafter. And I think that has a very profound effect upon the actions of the individual when dealing with others.
So it's also been said, you know, sometimes we have challenges in society and we see there are particular young men that seem to be give trouble and nobody can manage them. And then they are exposed to the Islamic faith, and you almost see what one would describe as a total turnaround in terms of now directing that energy, you know, with a greater level of discipline, a greater level of focus, development, and so on. What would you say contributes to that in terms of the experience within the faith?
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 others objectives as well. I didn't mention them all. One of them, preservation of life. The third, preservation of intellect, preservation of people's wealth, and the last, preservation of progeny or lineage. So when people learn about those type of things, obviously they're going to fulfill the rights of others better. We have many examples in the US where people, like you said, have gone to prison and totally reformed their life. I mean, we have in our community a number of people that have come home from prison after committing crimes, but they are example citizens and models for the community, helping Muslims and non-Muslims, you know, in life, because life is difficult. And as human beings, we like to be around one another and we have to assist one another. So again, Islam is a religion of rights. As I said, rights of God, that we fulfill them, firstly and foremostly, and likewise rights of human beings. You have rights upon me whether you're Muslim or not. The neighbor has a right upon me. In the Islamic faith, the Prophet taught us, no true Muslim can go to sleep and their neighbor goes to sleep hungry. How is that the case? Because that person lacks a part of humanity.
Right. How do you deal sometimes with the challenge? And let me pose one of the questions coming in.
Yes.
Is Islam against criminal behavior? And if so, then why is it we find, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, a number of gangs who profess to be Muslim? So they almost bring what is an association between criminal behavior and violence and trying to tie it in to Muslim. How do you respond to that?
I think criminality is criminality, and a criminal is a criminal regardless of what faith they profess. And like any other faith, you have, you know, pious people and you have impious people. You have good people and you have bad people. You know, any criminal, even if they ascribe to the Islamic faith, is a bad Muslim, for example. And I think if we're fair, if you look at other religions in the past, they've committed atrocities. I think the Pope is in Canada at the moment. He's apologizing on behalf of the Christians for the inhumane treatment of the children that attended those schools, and that's something that's taking place very recent now. Something that even people, you know, in the islands can all relate to. The crimes of the transatlantic slave trade. I mean, you had Christian scholars actually justifying that in the name of Christianity. So you have, as it relates to various faiths, you have people, you know, good people, and you have people who do not practice that faith. The same as the Islamic faith. You have people that practice it properly, and people that oppose its teachings. There's no such thing as a good Muslim, and you're robbing people. There's no such thing as a good Muslim and you're killing people. There's no such thing as a good Muslim and you're going around fornicating and being promiscuous. Those things, are totally against the Islamic faith. And all somebody has to do is just read the Quran, and read the lifestyle of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
And based on your experience, particularly out there in the United States, in more recent times, have you had found situations where you've had to stand firm to indicate that the faith is not about violence, the faith is not about this kind of negative influence, but we are here to support in terms of the growth and development of societies?
Yes, no doubt. I mean, in Philadelphia, one of the things, our community is recognized for its involvement in trying to improve the local area, economically and likewise even morally, in terms of the conduct and the behavior of the people. I mean, we've invested in the community as well. We've bought properties, renovated those properties. We provide a school for the community. Likewise, we've just purchased a restaurant. There's apartment buildings. We've just purchased a convenience store and other buildings in the area to improve the living facilities for people in inner cities. I think if we look at crime, there are a number of factors that lead to it. Poor education, poverty, lack of opportunities, and these type of things. And I think that they're present in many communities all around the world. They're complex issues, and like I said, the people they see in our communities, that Muslims, if we pull up our sleeves, we have, many of the solutions that can address those ills that are present today in society.
If we're to make the comparison, and I know you've been here several times in Tobago,
yes,
and this is where we put some of the others who behind the camera on spot just a bit. How would you describe the progress and the development in terms of Islam here within the Tobago space? Would you say that over your time, it's meeting the objective and really expanding? You give us an idea. How would you describe it? Yes, this is your progress report now.
I mean, no doubt. I mean, Yusuf, may Allah reward him, has put a lot of effort in to inviting people, his community. They've actually built a masjid. When I first visited, they didn't have a mosque, but they've built a mosque, and they've provided even jobs for the various community members. And he's well known, in the community, even amongst Muslims and non-Muslims alike. I thought, when walking with him, I thought he was the mayor. People stopping, how are you, Yusuf? How's everything? And even last night there was an incident. We was at the restaurant, because he has a restaurant, Skewers, and there was an elderly man, and obviously you could see that he's experiencing some challenges in life, and he asked us for some food, and we were like, speak to Yusuf, and he said, no, I'm going to leave Yusuf until later on tonight. So already he has a relationship where Yusuf is assisting him, I guess, through these difficult times. But definitely seeing growth, good community relations. You see that there's a good understanding, and like I said, it's very welcoming, and it's very inspiring to see this type of behavior in Tobago. And I think if other places in the world can see that the Muslims lived along non-Muslims, for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there wasn't any problems. Rather, whether Muslim, Christian, or Jew, or other than that, there was, people were dealt with based upon, principles of Islamic law, which the principle is fairness. There's a verse in the Quran, some of the companions, they said, that is the most comprehensive verse in the Quran, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan, that God commands us with justice and good conduct. Justice when dealing with anyone. Justice firstly when it comes to God is to give the right of God to God, which is to worship Him alone. That's the basis. And then after that, to give everyone their due right. So Islam is a religion that has to be built upon fairness. If you see a Muslim and you find that that Muslim is, unjust or oppressive or tyrannical, they represent themselves and not the Islamic faith.
And it's important to make that separation.
Yeah, you have to make that separation. One thing, I think there's a level of Islamophobia, in some of the media. When a Muslim does something wrong, it's highlighted, Muslim gang, or Muslim pedophile, and we had it in the UK. What's Islam got to do with those filthy activities and those filthy behaviors? Nothing. Because they're not saying now, Christian massacre, the Pope visiting in Canada and the likes of these type of things. So you see a level of Islamophobia, but like I said, in Trinidad and Tobago, I haven't experienced that myself.
And what's important, notwithstanding what may be sometimes the challenges that is afforded in terms of branding or giving a particular title, that there is still that level of commitment to the society.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about, because you see when persons go through the faith, that commitment is not only within. but there seems to be that obligation going beyond Muslims. So yes, I may have come in, just as we were speaking about before, with my challenges. I might have been a menace to society initially, and you assist in that Muslim faith in bringing the individual to a greater level, a greater sense of responsibility. I want you to speak to that part, that where that individual commitment, and I have one or two friends in that, and they always tell me that the commitment, when one gets to a more comfortable place in terms of knowing oneself, is not just true the faith and those who have helped, but you now have a greater responsibility to the society, to persons who aren't even Muslim. Tell us about that experience in terms of that kind of community support going beyond just the Islamic faith.
I mean, if the example in the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, many people embraced Islam just on the back of how he dealt with the orphans, how he dealt with the needy, how he dealt with the widow, how he dealt with the women, and so on and so forth. Some people would come to him and actually just monitor his behavior and see the way that he interacted with the people, and they were amazed by it, that he would feed the orphan, that he would aid the weak. And like you said, it's not about, sometimes what you say, it's about what you do. There's a saying in Arabic, and it's in English as well, إن الأفعال أحيانا أبلغ من الأقوال, that your actions speak louder than your words on occasions. And people want to see what you are doing to improve society around you. And that's why, in this time, I think one of the challenges that we have, especially with the systems that we find in the West, some politicians, they say what is needed to be elected, not what is right. We need leaders to say what is right, even if it's against the sentiment of the majority. Because some of the problems that we're facing in the world, some of them are complex problems. The dangerous thing about that is sometimes that creates an environment where you have demagogues, and that's what's happened in various elections around the world, no names mentioned, all over the place. And we need leaders that are going to be honest to the people. And sometimes being honest to the people, you're going to tell them things or make decisions that not everyone's going to agree with, but in the long term, they will find that it is correct and that's what is right. And one of those things is the family structure. A lot of the chaos that we find, whether in Trinidad or in Philadelphia or around the world, is because of the collapse of the family, the traditional family structure, where the father, maintained the household, made sure that the children were educated, assisted the wife was protected, the wife cooperates with the father. That can't be escaped. We never had these problems, maybe, some of the problems that we're facing today, that people are just going around killing people, like it's fun, 100 years ago. And one of the reasons for that is, again, because the collapse of the family structure. And I think, again, that a good Muslim is someone who fulfills the right of God, to worship Him alone, and also after the rights of God, to fulfill the rights of human beings. And Islam makes you a better human being. That's what it's about, right? Yes. Being better humans. And one thing, like you said, throughout my, time, whether it's as a teacher, or whether it's as an imam, I've found that, Islam, if somebody has good qualities, it improves upon them. If somebody is lacking certain qualities, it refines them. And even in America, even, for example, in the criminal system, Islam has prevented many people. One, is transformed their lives. And we could have a whole show maybe with hundreds and hundreds of people coming from Philadelphia and sitting and telling you about their journey. But also, one of the things I found as well, even with regards to extremism, there's no doubt there's a problem when people are marginalized and people view that they have been oppressed. Any community, that they could turn to certain trends that are not productive. But Islam, especially, upon the authentic orthodox, way of the Salaf, meaning the disciples of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, it's preventing many people from extremism and joining extremist groups. But you don't hear, many people saying that, how we've helped to combat and stop people embracing. They only celebrate people that they've already gone down the road of extremism, and then they, for whatever reason, now they're no longer an extremist. Yes. I think the better, the most effective result is the ones who are prevented from the beginning, Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a solid way to close, in terms of giving that reminder of what is that greater responsibility. So we want to say thank you to Shaykh Ḥasan, Imam Jumantown Masjid, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for joining us on set here this morning at the Tobago Updates morning show. Viewers, at this